AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order. I just finished a fantastic book on artificial intelligence and the evolutionary path of China and the US. Author Kai-Fu Lee inspires as he focuses on the astounding capabilities of AI, artificial intelligence, and the one thing that only humans can provide: love. The journey includes the author's own brush with morality and proposes a path forward. The synthesis on which we must build our shared future is AI's ability to think, coupled with a human's ability to love. He believes this synergy harnesses the undeniable power of artificial intelligence to generate prosperity, while also embracing our essential humanity. This hope for our future lies both in this new synergy between artificial intelligence and the human heart, and an AI-fueled age of abundance that fosters love and compassion in our society. I recommend this book. You should reading it. In the meantime, here is a summary organized by some several key themes. The evolution of artificial intelligence. Although the first three phases of the Industrial Revolution were highly transformative, what comes next is likely larger in scale and faster to broad impact. Whereas the industrial revolutions took place across several generations, the AI revolution will drive major impact within one generation. The author effectively described the prior transformations induced by general purpose technology, and AI's emerges as a GPT. This emergence is accelerated by three catalysts that didn't exist during the introduction of steam power, electricity, and information technology. Number one, digital enables replication and distribution at near zero marginal cost. This is in stark contrast to the hardware-intensive revolution of steam power, electricity, and the information technology fueled Third Industrial Revolution. Number two, the presence of venture capital, an industry that did not exist in the prior phases of the Industrial Revolution. Number three, China. Artificial intelligence will be the first GPT of the modern era in which China plays a significant role in both advancing and applying the technology. China's entrance to the field of AI constitutes a major accelerant that was absent for previous revolutions. Where the innovations of prior revolutions altered the nature of manual labor and some aspects of cognitive labor, AI cuts across both. The first and second revolution changed the mode of production and drove descaling. What once required high-skilled worker was now done by low-skilled worker. This phenomenon drove job creation and improved our standard of living, effectively described by economist Robert J. Gordon in The Rise and Fall of American Growth. However, a third revolution beginning in the late 1960s did not follow the same pattern. The technology of this era and the innovation of the emerging era has a skill bias in favor of high-skilled workers. As the author described, the main thrust of AI's employment impact is not one of the job creation through discleaning, but of job replacement through increasingly intelligent machines. Although there is plenty of speculation about impact, AI has arrived. Enabled by large amount of data, increasing in computing power, and the invention of deep learning, the author sees AI evolving in 4 waves. Number 1, the first 2 waves have hit the shores: Internet AI and business AI. They are reshaping our digital and financial worlds in very profound ways. Number two, the third wave is perception AI, which digitizes the physical world and learns to interact with, understand, and see the world around us. Number three, the final one. The final most impactful wave is autonomous. Autonomous AI. The self-driving cars, autonomous drones, and intelligent robots of our future. The superpowers. Compelling content on AI makes this must-read. Perhaps more eye-opening, however, is the education on China provided by the author. A peek into the history and culture of China helps us to understand their journey, mindset, and aspirations. It then becomes easy to understand the author's assertion that China is quickly becoming an AI superpower. Driven by the accomplishment of AlphaGo in 2016, China embarked on a plan to become an AI leader. At the heart of the China supremacy argument is a global shift driven by two transitions, from the age of discovery to the age of implementation, and from the age of expertise to the age of data. The US dominated in the age of expertise, but China stands to dominate in the age of implementation. These two transitions tilt the playing field towards China. Battle-tested entrepreneurs and comparable amounts of data and the supportive policy environment are the reasons AI leadership now favors China. We learn how China startups embrace a copycat mentality, took inspiration from American business models, and then fiercely competed against each other to adopt and optimize for Chinese user. Through the process, world-class entrepreneurs were born. From a data standpoint, the immersion in the details of the offline world enabled China companies to create the Saudi Arabia of data. The fossil fuel that powers this emerging era. Their technological system in the physical world gives algorithms eyes into the content of daily lives, while mobile payments generate the richest maps of the consumer activity the world has ever known. WeChat, the all-in-one super app, gives Tencent perhaps the single richest data ecosystem of all the giants. Beyond entrepreneurs and data, China has a favorable policy environment. They embrace a mantra of mass and entrepreneurship and mass innovation and foster a startup ecosystem to support this innovation. The Chinese government sought to drive a fundamental shift in their economy from manufacturing-led growth to innovation-led growth to get a sense for the policy differences. Here is an example articulated by our author. American politicians wary of the societal implications of autonomous vehicle may pump the brakes on deployment. The Chinese government will see this difficult concern as important topic to explore, but not as a reason to delay the implementation of technology that will save tens, if not hundreds of thousands of lives. As the Western world looks to balance the opposing forces of innovation, does China's techno-utilitarian political culture pave the way for faster deployment of game-changing innovation? The author envisions that over the coming decade, China's world-class entrepreneur will apply deep learning to any problem that shows the potential for profit across hundreds of industries. They are likely aided by a Silicon Valley weakness and unwillingness and resistance to localization. As the author describes, AI has a much higher localization quotient than earlier internet services. Every divergence between Chinese preferences and a standard global product has and will become an opening that local competitors attack. In addition, US and Chinese companies take very different approaches to global markets. While US giants seek to conquer these markets for themselves, China is arming the local startups. The China approach, built more on cooperation than conquest, may prove better suited to globalizing a technology that requires both experts and local data collection. For example, self-driving cars in India need to learn the way pedestrians navigate the street of Bangalore, and the micro-landing apps in Brazil need to observe the spending habits of millionaires in the Rio de Janeiro. A Chinese leadership position will alter the balance of power. Real-world application of AI will translate into productivity gains on a scale not seen since the Industrial Revolution, among other lofty estimates. PricewaterhouseCoopers estimate that this real-world application will add 15.7 trillion to global GDP by 2030. 7 trillion of that is predicted to go to China, nearly double North America 3.7 trillion in gains. Societal implication. An opposed to Terminator-based apocalyptic scenarios, the author focuses on the real underlying threat posed by artificial intelligence, large-scale social disorder, and political collapse, stemming them widespread unemployment and gaping inequality. While the author feels our present AI capabilities can't create a superintelligence that destroys our civilization, he fears that we humans may prove more than up to that task ourselves. In the coming decades, AI's greatest potential to disrupt and destroy lies with its impact on labor market and social system. The industrial age conditions us to view our primary role and identity in society as productive, wage-earning work. But the emerging age requires a shift in our mindset, culture, and values. Cultural change can only come through different policies that nudge our behaviors in different directions. As the author points out, this will require rewriting our fundamental social contexts and restructuring economic incentives to reward social and productive activities in the same way that the industrial economy rewarded economically productive activities. While a path to socially productive activities is desired, emerging platforms leveraging an AI foundation have a natural affinity for weaker tech economies, eroding the competitive mechanism of markets in the process. This is likely to play out across many industries with a skill bias that divides the job market and squeezes out the middle class. Along the way, we could see the rapid emergence of a new class of AI-powered oligarchies. American antitrust laws may be inactive due to the need to prove that monopoly is harming consumers, when in reality AI monopolists would likely to delivering better service at cheaper prices. Inequality is likely to rise as a greater concentration of wealth lands in the hands of a few. The gap between the global haves and have-nots will widen, with no known path toward closing it. This gap widens between individuals and nations. As robot-operated factories relocate closer to customers in large markets, the ladder that developing countries climbed up on their way to prosperity disappears. People will struggle. Many of us are conditioned to derive our sense of self-worth from the act of daily work. The rise of artificial intelligence will challenge these values and threaten to undercut that sense of life purpose. Our author stresses that lurking beneath this social and economic turmoil will be psychological struggle. As we are displaced by intelligence machines, we will face a deeper question. What does it mean to be human? Jobs. Consensus on the AI impact to jobs is elusive. The author effectively presents all the common arguments on both sides of the polarized discussion. These conclusions are logical and compelling. Within 15 years, AI will be capable of eliminating upwards of 50% of US jobs. It will pose two distinct threats, one-of-one replacements and ground-up disruptions. An autonomous vehicle that provides mobility service is a one-to-one replacement of a taxi driver. Finding new ways to satisfy a fundamental human need via algorithms versus employees is a ground-up disruption. This latter impact to jobs is not accounted for in the various projections. As these disruptors enable lower cost and superior service, their market share gains apply pressure to their employee-heavy rivals. Those companies will be forced to adapt, restructuring to leverage AI and reduce employee. Author carefully focuses the job discussion on the human element. He described how economic-intensive public policies and cultural dispositions have disadvantageous competition field professions. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, home health aides and personal care aides are the two fastest growing professions in the country, with an expected growth of 1.2 million jobs by 2026. Average annual income, just over $20,000. Our labors of love, like stay-at-home parenting or caring for aging or disabled relatives, aren't even considered job. A true shift in culture requires converting this compassion field endeavors into careers with respectable pay and greater dignity. Existing high-paying professions take a different path towards the same end. For example, an intelligent machine surpass a human's ability to diagnose disease and recommend treatments. The doctor may become a compassionate caregiver, needed for activities requiring emotional intelligence, but not their ability to memorize facts to optimize treatment regimens. This reflects a natural symbiosis between humans and machines. AI handle optimization. Humans bring empathy, creativity, and compassionate touch. Existing occupations are likely redefined and entirely new professions created. The journey from here to this possible future is complex. Our author digs into some of the popular policy suggestions for adapting to this future. He views them largely as technical fixes or tweaks to policy and business models that seek to smooth the transition but do not actually shift the culture. He lumped these fixes into three buckets: retaining workers, reducing work hours, and redistributing income. The folks in the retraining camp believe that a slow shift in the needed skill will drive workers to adapt their abilities through training, mitigating the risk of job loss. Others believe that reducing work hours in the answer, spreading the jobs that do remain over more workers. Lastly, the redistribution camp believe in more radical redistribution schemes like UBI to support unemployed workers and spread the wealth created by AI. Throughout the book, we learn about China. In the context of job, this learning helping us understand the issue through their lens and how their culture and history contribute to this perspective. Not every region of the world tipped from agriculture to industry as aggressively as the West. Over 1/4 of Chinese workers are still on farms, with another quarter involved in industrial production. That compares with less than 2% of American in agriculture and around 18% in the industrial jobs. Although China will face a raging labor market transition due to automation, our author believes there is a difference in timing. Intelligence automation of the 21st century operates differently than the physical automation of the 20th century. AI algorithm will impact jobs before intelligence robots do. Therefore, knowledge work in the West is likely impacted before blue-collar work in China. Creating our future. A letter said it all. BlackRock founder Larry Fink posted a letter to CEOs demanding greater attention to social impact. Imagine the chief executive in the shareholder value era being told to focus on purpose. That letter read, "We see many governments failing to prepare for the future on issues ranging from the retirement and infrastructure to automation and worker retaining. As a result, society increasing is turning to the private sector and asking that companies respond to broader societal challenge. Society is demanding that companies, but both private and public, serve a social purpose. Companies must benefit all their stakeholders, including shareholders, employees, customers, and communities in which they operate." As the world moves towards its third tipping point, profit must shift to purpose. As our author states, blindly pursuing profits without any thought to social impact won't just be morally dubious. It will be downright dangerous. It creating our future. Kai Fu Lee foresees a venture ecosystem emerging to focus on the creation of humanistic service sector jobs, steering money into human-focused service project that can scale up and hire large number of people. This type of impact investing will need to be different in his eyes. It will need to accept linear returns when coupled with meaningful job creation, but the private sector can't do it alone. Devising a new social contract for this emerging future requires public policy. For example, our authors suggest a social investment stipend. The stipend would be government salary given to those involved in activities that promote a kind, compassionate, and creative society, including care work, community service, and education. Overall, the book is a fascinating journey into Chinese history, culture, current perspective. We get a vantage point for an AI expert, a venture capitalist, a father, son, brother. Through this journey, we learn that the future does not have to be in either or proposition. Humans and machines can indeed create a world of a great flourishing. As our author states, never has the potential for human flourishing been higher, or the stakes of failure greater. If we believe that life has meaning beyond this material rat race, then AI just might be a tool that can help us uncover that deeper meaning.